Welcome to Reaching World Podcast, where we highlight the world's largest network of influencers for good, love, and service. Join us in saying thank you to these incredible individuals and organizations by listening, subscribing, and sharing their legacies. And by doing this together, we will help inspire others to leave their legacy of service and love. I'm your host, Zach Garner. Awesome. Well, we're really excited to have Constance on our podcast today. She is an entrepreneur, a real estate guru. She is launching her podcast herself. But Constance, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our podcast listeners?
I own a real estate brokerage here in Boise, Idaho, and I got into the industry 4 years ago, kind of dove right in, built a team of 9 agents. I had 3 employees and, started to do really well in my industry. And then, I'm kind of a psychology nerd and aficionado. So I do a lot of reading about psychology. That's what my degree and my background is in, my educational background. So, between just running a business, I'm really into writing and thought leaders. And I kind of want to, spread my feelers into, putting some intellectual content out there with my prowess in psychology and as well as business, and also just, young females who are embarking upon adulthood and all of the, mishaps that we make in our early 20s that cultivate who we are, moving into the middle and then latter half of our life. But that's me in a nutshell, other than putting together my book and my podcast and then managing this real estate company. That's what I do.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. Just, finding yourself and now being willing to invest in the upcoming, generation of women. That's admirable, because a lot of people spend so long focusing on themselves and developing themselves. And I feel like we become more of a master when we turn around and teach others, what we've been through and what we've experienced. Is that kind of what the
100%.
dream you're chasing right now? Yeah. The dream you're chasing right now is getting your book launched and your podcast up and going.
It is. It's getting my book launched, the podcast up and going. I obviously, my full-time gig is my real estate brokerage, but the nice thing about real estate is I'm self-employed, so that gives me the latitude and flexibility to play with my schedule and carve out time for my hobbies and side ventures. But going back on what you said, I love that. I would say that it's why I started my team in real estate, because I got into the business. I didn't have a sphere of influence. I didn't use the scripts. I didn't go the traditional route. I had to figure out how to create a 6-figure business off the cuff, cold prospect. And so then my passion is, once I learned that, I kind of, crafted my own key and unlocked the door. I wanted to teach and train other agents how to do that. And it's funny because even before real estate, I was a bikini and figure competitor with NPC. And, I was in sports as a kid growing up, but I wasn't by any means a highly disciplined, strength trainer and weightlifter. And so when I made that shift and I again mastered it, I turned around and used my own experience to train and gear up other people to take the same trek and journey. So yeah, I think knowledge is wasted unless it's shared.
Yeah, totally. So take us through that journey. So when was that when you started your real estate gig?
I moved to Boise, Idaho from Houston, Texas in 2014, and I didn't launch into real estate until 2016. So actually it's been 3 years. I misspoke. It's been 3 years, but one thing you should know about me, Zach, is I am a sprinter. So I graduated high school and I have this habit in my life and I should just own it and accept it. But I graduated high school in 3 years, got my bachelor's in 3 years. And, I rushed into a long-term in 3 months. Actually, I built a 6-figure business. So I do things quickly, but see, I get obsessed with what I'm doing and I get obsessed with the mechanics behind what I'm doing. So I kind of start with the end in mind and then I reverse engineer what the game plan is, but then I immediately dive into the nuances of like the path that gets me there. And I feel that that's always accelerated my results, totally. Plus the psychology, it's the psychology behind it too. I don't know why we're not equipping our, high school students with psychology courses. That's going to be the thing that's going to set them up for the most success going into, the quote adult world, right? If you can understand other people's psychology and you can, practice empathy and you can work in harmony with others and you can work to, not in a Machiavellian type way, but if you can work to influence other people, benign manipulation, if you will, then you have a leg up in life. And people's psychology gets in their way all the time. Everybody needs permission to do something. Everybody needs a validation. They need recognition. It's like, just do what you need to do. Take fear off the table. Go for it. Know that you're going to get your knee scraped. So if you're scared of getting your knee scraped, if you're scared of failure, if you're scared of an audience watching you fail, you're already in the wrong mental space. Totally. Good luck to accomplish much.
That is so true. I love that. That's powerful. So where does that inner drive come from? Like, what motivates you every day to wake up and go through the grind that you go through?
Oh man. It's funny because none of us are turned on 100% of the time, right? Like no one just
we're not that peak state that Tony Robbins says, right?
All the time. Like in psychology is a constant balancing act. Like you don't just arrive at a place and stay there. Like there's always people, situations that are constantly trying to knock you out of peak state. And it's just about balancing that. But what drives me, it's fundamental, I think, personality characteristics. I was always driven as a kid. I was literally, whenever we had fundraisers and you had to go knock door to door and, you'd get the prizes if you sold X amount of things or dollars, always the top seller. Even in fifth grade, I remember I won the state, like the top salesperson for that fundraiser in the state that year. And nice. I was just in fifth. I would literally go door knocking until I had blisters on my feet. And my mom was working at the time. So my grandparents were literally driving around the neighborhood as I went door to door to door until it was dark outside. And they had to call me back in the car. And I was like, I need one more sale today or I'm going to.
That's incredible.
Always been driven. Now, I will say this, my catalysts are fear of not obtaining my goal. So if I set a goal for myself, I kind of really identify with that goal and I get really geeked out and excited on what that goal is going to bring into my life and my universe. And so for me, it's kind of like before I got into figure competitions and bikini competitions, I had just gotten married. I had gained all this happy weight. I wasn't in sports anymore. So I was just falling apart physically, right? I was like 21 falling apart physically. And so like that low was the slingshot that pushed me into, to do a complete 180, right? Because I just got fed up and I was like, I've got to do this. And when I got into real estate, to be quite honest, it was a very low place in my life financially. My ex-husband at the time was making six figures in the oil field. I was making six figures as a personal trainer. So for two kids in their young 20s, bringing in, scratching 200K a year, we were doing really well. Well, oil field shuts down because OPEC decides to play a game, with the oil industry. Yeah. And so we move up here. He loses his job. I didn't have my career anymore. So we lived off of credit because we were young and stupid. And we, from that American entitlement attitude, didn't want to compromise our lifestyle and crunch knuckle down and, not go out and have steak dinners. We instead, eat beans and we didn't do that. So anyway, so I was in over $100,000 worth of debt before I got into real estate. And I knew that I had to do something drastic in order to, again, change my script, change my circumstances and enter real estate. So again, like my lowest moments in my life have always been the catalyst for greatness that I've achieved. I can honestly say that.
Wow. Someone out there is going to need to hear that because, whether you're at a low point in your career, just knowing if you're willing to push through it, greatness, does await those who are true to the process and true to themselves and true to, going through the grind. So I love that you said that.
Well, and if you think about it too, I think a lot of people are we have this tendency to get very content. And here's the interesting thing about the time and space that we live in today is that, the pressure to, find food, find shelter, find security, like as animals, all of that stuff is off the table now. So we're struggling with, just collectively as a species, like with our new environment, everybody's super content. Everybody can eat. Everybody can go to McDonald's and get a 99-cent cheeseburger. It's like the pressure to cultivate, results and stay disciplined to the process because you have no choice has kind of been taken off the table. So, I think with entrepreneurs like yourself and myself, the pressure is always on. Like I've got to make my mortgage. I've got to pay my bills. Last year I had to pay payroll to employees. And so that pressure to perform was constantly there. I feel for a lot of people that want to do shit in their life and achieve things, but they're just content enough at home. They're just content enough with their job. But truly they're miserable. Like I feel that fine is just about the worst thing that you can be. Like either be ecstatic or be just in a shitty, dark place, because at least that shitty, dark place is going to catalyze and cattle prod your ass into action. You know what I mean?
Totally. No, I love that. That is huge. I love that. If you could look 10 years down the road and see Constance, or, what's the legacy that you're trying to build? Because we understand you have the drive, you have the vision. What is that long-term goal that you're chasing now?
Well, long-term goal. I mean, in 10 years, I'd like to see myself surrounded by, a beautiful family with a loving and supportive partner that, I have a safe homestead with. That's super important to me. I really would like to build my, my empire and influence when it comes to, being not so much. I don't like the word motivational speaker or life coach. I just don't like that term. But, being an author and writing books and putting my perspective out there. I mean, I feel that I've always had a natural inclination to dig really deep. Like, for instance, I would say my biggest, as an author, my biggest inspiration is Robert Greene. If you read any of his stuff, The Art of Seduction, The Laws of Human Nature, I mean, this guy's just brilliant. And to encapsulate that into a book and, impact people in their lives and the way and challenge, the way that they think about themselves, and hopefully give them a piece that's not only cultivated me into a better person, but can help them do the same thing. I mean, I don't know, in 10 years, I think that's where I'd like to be. I'd like my podcast to be influential. I'd like my books, my writings, my intellectual property to be influential. So, and I mean, from a selfish standpoint, I mean, it's really just, it's very cathartic for me. Like I'm a bit fearless. And so I've done and I've experienced a lot in my short decade as an adult. And, I feel like I acquire knowledge quickly because I choose every single day to be a student of my relationships and my environment. I don't project onto other people. I more so absorb, and I take internal power and compass. So it's given me the tools to also understand how to calibrate my own compass. You know what I mean? Like and I think a lot of people don't understand that they have that power within them, whereas a lot of people walk around with a victim's mentality. So
Totally.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Constance, you're decades ahead of people. Can go through their entire, 30, 40, 50-year career and not have this perspective and knowledge that you have, of this maturity level of like understanding, where you can get to and what you want to do with that good and that influence. So I'm in awe and I admire all that. So I love that you shared.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's funny because I would say the one thing that, is very polarizing about my image is, I have 90-ish followers on Instagram, 90-ish thousand followers. I have 90 followers, Zach. Basically, my dad and his extended family.
Yes, I'm hanging up right now because you said that. Just kidding. We don't talk to anybody with 90 followers. I'm just kidding.
No, I know, right? I'm out. Damn it. No. 90,000, but that following was built on, and I was kind of an Instagram baddie. So, more of the sex appeal. And it's funny because it still blows my mind how myopic people are. And, it's 2019, for Christ's sake. It's not 1950s anymore. I mean, I never accepted my body physically unless I was a size 0 and I was ready to get on stage and compete, meaning dried out, hormones on the fritz, just super lean, right? Are you following me?
Yeah. Totally.
So when I got out of that entire universe and I was no longer maintaining that low of a body weight, I wasn't as buff or as ripped as I used to be. I lost all confidence in my physicality. Like wow. I lost all confidence in that. And so, for me, when I all of a sudden learned how to put makeup on and I took a selfie, and the first one that I posted got such an overwhelming response, I started to slowly feel comfortable as a woman with curves, as a size 6 and not a size 0. And so my Instagram is really a monument for me and empowering my own need to have confidence in myself. So, women shouldn't strip each other of that ability. And if you don't want to take care of yourself physically and you don't want to look cute, then don't do it. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's a big facet of my personality. I'm all about people owning their sexuality. I'm all about people feeling comfortable in their sexuality. There's so much dysfunction out there in relationships because people are scared to talk about their sexuality, their sexual preferences. They're scared to feel confident in bed. But the bottom line is I'm very much an open open book. And I'm all about, again, psychologically just empowering yourself and with any tool and in any which way that you can.
No, that's awesome. And I love that you're using that influence and that confidence to bring out the best in other people as well. Because obviously you're building a team, you're building an influence and building a following. So that takes a lot. And you figured it out. So what if you could give some advice to a struggling entrepreneur or mother or father that wants to give up on their dreams today? What's something you've had to overcome to get there? And then what advice would you give that struggling person or individual?
Now, okay, so this is scenario, right? Situation wise, are we saying that it's a mother or father?
Yeah, mother or father.
Okay, so like, do we have a spouse that's at least covering the bills and taking care of the finances while the other spouse kind of is able to pursue their dream?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
I love that.
Because I've got different advice per situation. It's like with real estate agents, I tell them all the time, like, you need to have best case scenario. Like if you're a type A stud, best case scenario, 3 months worth of runway. If you're not the best salesperson, you're not the most gregarious, you're not great at converting business, you need to have 6 to 8 months worth of runway, covering your bills before you can anticipate building a pipeline of commission checks. But my advice in that situation, as long as your food, your bills, your lights are staying on, and your family's financially protected, my best advice is to get out of your head, meaning that you need to completely let all the fear subside. You should just expect to fail. So start knowing that you're going to fail and know that when you fail, it's going to be a great learning lesson, because it makes you more tactile, right? So it makes you able to be more agile on the field, because you've experienced what the setbacks are. So you're more equipped to overcome them. And then my next advice would be to get out of your head, let the fear subside, and entrepreneur chasing their dreams. Discipline, let the fear subside, and then discipline. So nobody gets anywhere being lazy. I've gone through bouts of laziness. I've gone through, and I think that there wasn't a catalyst there. There wasn't something that was like really lighting my soul on fire. So, and what did I say? I was just comfortable enough, right? So it kind of made me sit on my laurels.
Exactly.
So discipline yourself. If there's a book out there by David Goggins. Have you heard of that? Rogan blew him up on his podcast a month ago.
I haven't read that one yet.
So David Goggins, great story, phenomenal book. He talks about, he's like a long distance triathlon, like crazy marathon runner. But this guy came from the worst possible background and just cultivated himself into like this mental warrior. And, he talks about the thought process of pushing through all those things, like what that looks like. I actually want to pull up this book because it's a great book for your readers or your listeners. But, he talks about the discipline aspect. And I know that anytime I procured results in my life, whether it was, in my physical arena, whether it was my professional arena, there was an element of discipline, and that discipline came because of my obsession with obtaining the results. And so you've got to discipline yourself. You've got to discipline your schedule, your time allocation. You cannot be bouncing all over the place and reacting to everything in your environment. Like if you're not scheduling and you're not precipitating your day, your week, your month, your year, then you're going to be in a state of reactivity rather than proactivity. So get your head right and just discipline yourself. It's easy, Zach, but I mean, nobody does it.
Why do people give up on that so easily? Like be okay with the worst case scenario. People can't do that. And I think that fear and that insecurity is what kills their dream before it even gets off the ground. Well,
and I wonder sometimes too, if it's an element of that, but I think a lot of people are what's the word I'm looking for? We're all very much aware of our audience. So here's a higher level thought process on the psychology front, right? I am who I think you think I am. So there's this echo chamber, right, in our heads. Like we have no concept of self unless we have people react to what it is that we do. If we didn't have other people, saying, yes, I like that. Here's the yellow tape. Don't cross that. Don't do that. Like, okay, I liked what you did. Then we intuitively do more of those things to be accepted by more people. Like we're all operating here off of validation and acceptance at the end of the day. And so, there's a certain level of modeling as well as perception. And I think a lot of people are very much aware of their audience, right? Their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, their friend group, their Facebook friends, and I think a lot of people are too conscious of their audience. And I know a lot of people who have felt or been sparked by a calling that they have intuitively felt for themselves, like they wanted to go out and do these things, but because the people in their life or their world don't perceive them to be that person, they don't even go and take a shot at it because they don't want to be told, who are you? Don't kid yourself. You're not that person. But so I think a lot of people are too aware of their audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, throw your audience a curveball, redefine and redevelop yourself. Nobody can tell you who you are at the end of the day. You can wake up and make that choice and flip it on the drop of a dime every single day.
Wow, that's so true. I love that you said that. That's powerful stuff.
Oh, hey, that book by David Goggins is called Can't Hurt Me. So anyways, it's a phenomenal book.
That's perfect. I was going to ask you, what personal development book would you recommend our listeners? And would that be the one you want to focus on today?
I would say Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, because it's all about just like being a mental warrior. And then also, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene is a phenomenal book. And I mean, it's literally, if you ever wanted to understand psychology, don't get the audio version of that book. Like, get it as a textbook and highlight and dog ear the shit out of it. It's just a manual for life and people.
Love it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get both of those. Thank you. Constance, it's been a pleasure. This has been fun. I appreciate the call.
You're welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
These episodes will be launched on Mondays and Thursdays. And if you'd like someone to be on the podcast, if you think there's someone in your network that should be recognized for the good they are doing in the world, please reach out to us and send us a direct message. We can be found at Reaching World Podcast on Facebook.com. So be sure to find us there, like our page, and submit any ideas or suggestions of individuals or organizations that should be highlighted on this podcast. Now, to finish today's episode, a couple additional ads from our sponsors. Are you a business owner that would like to maximize your staff or sales team's production and overall performance? Go to buildyourtraining.com and see how business owners are empowering their teams by digitizing a cloud-based training platform. Again, go to buildyourtraining.com to help unleash your team's overall potential and performance.